All right, good morning, everybody, and welcome to the AutoHub show. Here we go.
Manager for these key Atlanta. Just wanted to take a minute to talk about Larry Feldman, Career Changers USA. Larry and I have been working together for about the last 12 years now. And anything I've ever needed as far as recruiting, training, Larry's been right there. Larry's got me salespeople, he's got me managers, he's got me technicians even through the toughest times in the industry. And he is just the kind of guy who's going to tell you exactly what's on his mind. He's going to tell you exactly what he thinks. But Larry also has the expertise to back it up. When he was in the dealership world, he was a top performer, and that's really important to my staff, especially as it pertains to training. A lot of people can come in and teach like a textbook, but Larry has real world experience dealing with customers, dealing with situations in dealerships that we go through on a daily basis and try to train on. But Larry's been through it, so he can really empathize with the people and tell you what's worked for him and maybe what way not to go. Larry is just always at a 10. I mean, his energy level is always up there. And I think people, they just love that and they feed off of it. He's not faking it. He is genuinely excited to come in and help you. He's excited to come in and help grow your business. And he's one of those people who just really enjoys seeing dealers succeed and have a lot of fun at the same time.
Life is about connection, having a support system to lean on, and roads to endless possibility. At every turn, guiding the way, we are building the connections that move you.
So what would your dealership feel like if your entire sales staff was literally on fire, your sales and service staff? They were nonstop all over social media, completely dominating your marketplace. They could do it in 30 days or less and then continue their education to do it for an entire 6 months or a year. You literally would completely take over the entire marketplace and no one would be able to compete with you. And that's what we can do for you. So when you're walking around your community, whether you're at local restaurants or you're going to the gym, you don't want to be bothered? Fine, you won't be bothered. But a lot of people will walk up to you and say, oh my God, I love your social media. Your staff is amazing. We love what you're doing in the community. We want to come buy a car from you. We want to get an oil change at your dealership. Your community is absolutely going to love you. And it doesn't matter what platform you're on. You could be on TikTok, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, all social media platforms. You will literally be all over the place. And not only will you have ads running, but your own staff is going to be promoting your brand and promoting themselves within the dealership and within the business. So it's like running an ad times 100-fold because your entire staff is participating in the process. I've traveled all over North America. I've trained Toyota. I've trained Nissan. I've been to driving sales. I've been to Women in Auto. I get hired as a speaker for conferences at universities all over the country. And I can help change the trajectory of your dealership right now.
Good morning and welcome back. If you were at a SodaCon, Larry and we're both there in person, so that was pretty crazy. Great event, by the way. If you do have a chance to go next year, I would recommend. Larry and I also did a lot of great interviews, which hopefully you'll see with my wife in tow. Actually, hopefully you'll see soon as soon as I have a chance to edit. But we're talking about people today, which is kind of Larry's wheelhouse. So it's great news that we have Larry on the show. I mean, I know it's never a boring moment when Larry's on anyway. But I thought I would start with a couple books. Talking to Strangers from Malcolm Gladwell, who's a pretty interesting author. Surrounded by Idiots, and this is from Tomek Erickson. He's the gentleman him and his dad, I think, created the DISC profile. So it's a really good book if you want to understand people, and more specifically, understand how people think and work and how to work with them. And Read People Like a Book by Patrick King. So today, let me just move this forward one. Just before we start, obviously we have our AutoHub show disclaimer. The opinions expressed on the show are the opinions of our guests, not specifically of the AutoHub show or Ian Nethercott, etc. You can read it on our website. If you have questions, just reach out. So today we're talking about probably one of the most important subjects of any business, including automotive, the Finding People show. And as mentioned earlier, we were at, Larry and I were both at a SodaCon last week in Baltimore, Maryland, actually in Hanover, Maryland, at the live casino. A lot of great guests and a lot of great speakers. And of course, I did probably 15 to 20 interviews, some with Larry, some without. We received lots of great content, including some great interviews with Larry and Brian Kramer, and also with Billy. I think, Larry, you were involved in some of the other interviews as well. But what was your opinion of a SodaCon, Larry, since we're helming the show? Go ahead.
Well, I really liked it because of the people. We connected with tons and tons of people. We got to share some ideas. We got to, enjoy the camaraderie. It's just frightening how, in a time when our communication is so elevated, our ability to communicate is so elevated, how bad we are at communicating. So anytime I get a chance to talk to people and look them in the eye and have some fun with them and build some connections and bridges and just have some fun, I'm feeling good about it. I had a guy, Ian, who called me this morning. He was referred to me to help him get a job. Super nice guy and really a smart guy. But at the end, I said, do me a favor, call me this afternoon and just let me know what it is you want to do. Because by the time he got done finishing explaining to me what it is that he wanted to do, I was more lost than before I first spoke to him. Again, we're farther and farther away from saying, hello, how are you? Here's who I am. Here's what I do. Tell me about yourself. So I just think if we boil it all back down to the key elements, if we listen better, if we actually want to make connections with people, we can. It's kind of a lost art, but I think the good news is it's easy to recapture it.
Wow. So the communication, you would say, is the biggest challenge these days with when you're looking to hire people and people are applying. I mean, what's your
No. I want to be clear. It's not with hiring people. It's with having a planet. I mean, how many times have you seen 4 people sitting at a table and they're all on their phones, texting people instead of talking to the person they're actually out to dinner with or lunch with or whatever they're doing?
Oh,
I just think we've become horrendous communicators, and it attributes to a lot of the problems we have as people, as a society, certainly in business. I mean, how many, and I'm not picking on dealerships, how many businesses say this is our business model? This is who we are and what we do. And then they do the exact opposite. If you can't connect the dots and make it clear where we are and what we do, I don't know, if you remember, Ian, and it seems like a long time ago, I called you up and said, I saw your show. You guys look like you're terrific. can I get on? I'm a former dealer. I own a training and recruiting company. I'm a little crazy, and we'll have some fun. And you said, come on. But if I would have given you a 20-minute dialogue, on expanding the experience of the universe, you might have said, you know what, I think I can skip this one guest.
Yeah, it's interesting you bring up communication. I mean, I obviously prep for each show. I was a little bit burnt out because it was 5 days in a row, 14-hour days or whatever it is, shooting lots of video. Obviously, travel isn't easy on you, as you know. When you're looking at these different I guess, events and different shows and different communication, sometimes it's lost in communication. But to your point, when you're looking at communicating with candidates, and we did start with a quick video talking about communication, people's take on it. Excuse me. When people are looking for great staff, is part of their trouble finding great staff the fact that they can't communicate what they're looking for properly? I mean, what do you think?
I think it's a breakdown of communication in what they're looking for, how they're going to relate to the people on onboarding, making people feel comfortable. I work with involved with 200 dealerships as we speak. I try to help them all. I try to really give them my best and not just grab a check from them, but
Right.
make the situation better long term. But I got to tell you, crazy as I am, I have a lot of people that call me and say, Larry, I don't get it. Everything, you had me so pumped up and so excited about this job. And now that you're out of the dealership, it's just not connecting. That shouldn't be the case. They should be even more involved and make these people feel even more welcome than I do, because I'm just getting paid to bring them in, to train them, to get them excited. But you want an employee, you want a member of your team, you want somebody that feels like this is my place, this is where I belong, this is what I do. I just can't. I can't imagine that.
Right.
You're married. Imagine Joanna's mother and father going, you know what? She's married to him. Great. Now we can avoid him for the rest of the time until they get divorced. Well, I mean, it seems like that's what it is. Why would you ever want to bring somebody into your business, to your life, to any situation you have, and make them feel that they're not important or they're not part of it? That one's just a mystery to me. I'm not complaining about it, because as long as there's high turnover, I'll just keep rocking and rolling. But it still makes me shake my head and say, gosh, I wish these folks could do a little better at retention. Hey, then I could concentrate on training, which I love dearly.
So let me ask you a question. I mean, during the pandemic in the early days, there was a lot of layoffs. People were furloughed, they were outsourced, they were laid off.
What pandemic? Did I miss something? I haven't been watching the news much the last few years.
So yeah, a couple of years ago, there was a little bit of a challenge globally. Anyway, during that time, there were a number of dealers who were evaluating staff levels. They were deciding who to keep and who not to keep. Their furloughing employees. Fast forward a couple of years, now we have, return of a huge amount of inventory again. We've got, higher interest rates. We got some, obviously management challenges and growth in dealers. And of course, new challenges on the used car front, the new car front, and the service front. I know technicians are hard to find. How does a dealer stand out versus the competition looking for that quality staff that may be in the market? I mean, you're obviously out there helping them every single day. How do they stand out other than, I have a big name or I'm a big group from the competitors? Like how does a dealer attract those quality staff?
Well, let's go biblical on it. What you reap, so shall you sow. If your intention is to get people involved, build your business, realize that everybody's important, because everybody is. I've seen salespeople my whole career, treat the lot guys and the detail people like they're beneath them. Well, how the heck can they be beneath you when, if you don't get that scratch out of the car at 9:00 at night, you're not selling the vehicle? Everybody's important. And if you make them feel important, hey, they just feel better about themselves, which means they feel better about their life, their career, and your business. So I think it's just a matter, like everything else in life, in my opinion, just looking in the mirror and saying, okay, I know what I think I am. What am I really doing? I wrote a song with my band, and I'm going to send it to you one day. It's called Your perception ain't my reality. You know, the difference between what we think we are and what we really are is just part of human nature, right?
Right.
We see ourselves a little differently than other people see us. But in terms of a business model, being really friendly, being open, making people feel that, hey, you are included. We're an inclusive place. And here's the living proof of it. You know, I've told this story 100 times, and forgive me, but it's important. My first week on the job of the dealership I worked at and then she was a partner in, the GM was leaving, and he said to the operator said, "Boss, you have a call." And he said, "Tell him I left." Now, I've always said that that's ridiculous on about 100 levels. First of all, if the guy wanted to buy 2 cars that night and you didn't pick up his call, he might have said, "The hell with that guy. I'll go somewhere else." If the guy had a small problem, then maybe you fix it and you're a hero, as opposed to letting it fester overnight. Now the guy wants to kill you. But more importantly than that, let's take it one level. If you're a salesperson and you hear that, okay, boss thinks it's okay to leave when there's a customer, then it's okay for me to do it. You know, it's the nature versus nurture argument. You know, a lot of it is what we're brought up in, what we see around us. True leaders want to pull the people along with them, force them to do their best, push them to be the best they can be. But if you set a bad example, if you say one thing and do another, you're cooked. You tell me any dealer, and Ian, you've been around forever, okay, like I have. How many dealerships have you seen where everybody knows something's a problem and nobody does anything about it? How about the one salesperson that's a miscreant, that does all the wrong things, and they let him get away with it? What's the message to everybody else? Yeah, it's all right. Do the wrong thing. It's fine. You know, it's become endemic in our society. Because a lot of people have adopted the mentality, yeah, you showed up, you get a trophy in Little League. Well, you're not teaching them to say, hey, if you're bad, let's make you better. And if you're great, you should be saluted. So I just think I mean, I try to make life really simple. Show up, do your best, make the people around you feel good, have an attitude of gratitude. Because a lot of times, again, I'm just going off of my experience, which has made me better. It's made me a little crazy, but I have a lot of fun. I've seen managers disparage customers. Well, if a manager disparage customers, what do you think the salespeople think about customers? As opposed to being excited about everybody that walks in. Being excited, man, that's great. This looks like you have something, rather than, there's nothing here. If I told you how many times my finance guy, I was in Trenton, New Jersey, super nice people, super bad credit on the average. If I told you how many times my finance manager, rest in peace, would say, throw them out, they're no good. I didn't throw anybody out. An hour later, I figured out a way to get it done, or we got a co-signer. None of this is complicated. It's like everything else in life. Again, in my opinion, we make things complicated. We forget our purpose. You know, we forget what it is we're trying to accomplish. It's like having a navigation system and not setting the coordinates. You're going to wander around aimlessly.
So what about that dealer who say, I'm looking for, say, the top 5 reasons why I can't find people, or maybe it's something I'm doing wrong for my advertising, or maybe it's something I'm doing wrong when I'm hiring people because they're taking the bum rush or they're leaving after 30 days. I mean, what are the top 5 things that you would tell to a dealer how they can get better at this? I mean, obviously, you know, we have these issues in automotive and elsewhere, I'm sure.
I'll give you a few. First, you've seen me in action, so you know what I do. When I do, I'm not talking about training now. I'm talking about recruiting and training, because it's essential to, I believe, the question you just asked me. I do 2 days training. You've sat through it. I talk about every subject on earth except cars. I want them to understand themselves. I want them to relate, to correlate. I want them to learn to really listen. And yet I can't tell you how many times around the country, there's no managers in the meeting. Well, if I'm teaching something and your staff isn't involved in it, doesn't that mean that maybe we're going in 2 different directions? You know, if you and me are on a rowboat and we row in the same direction, we're going to go fast and far. If you're rowing one way and I'm rowing the other, we're going in a big circle. So getting the managers involved is important. I kind of break that pattern up. If I'm sitting in front of somebody and they're terrific, I'll drag the manager over. Hey man, do you have a minute? Okay, not great. Say hello to this guy. What does it do? It gives them a feel for the person, And it makes the person understand that I like you enough that I brought the manager over to meet you. Again, simple psychology and not being a manipulative, just trying to get everybody excited about the same thing. Making people understand how important good onboarding is. Getting people involved, making them feel like they're not lost, that there's a path. Here's what we do. Here's how we do it. Here's all the different departments. I often talk about another reason, another way to keep things together is to have sales service meetings. Because in most dealerships, there seems to be a schism between the front and the back, variable and fixed. And the reason is the more happy people, the more involved people you have in a situation, the more involved, happy people you're going to have in a situation. That wasn't a stutter. I repeated what I just said because it's true. The more people we get involved in the process in a positive fashion, the better. I think it's very important to be clear about what the expectations are, what the duties are, and what will happen if you do it the right way, and what will happen if you do it the wrong way.
So what about technicians? I know we hear a lot of talk about technicians, how they're hard to find, how we can't find any, how they're, we just need more. There isn't enough getting trained. I mean, if I'm a dealer in a competitive market and I'm that's bogging down my business, or I just don't have enough hands to do the work, how do I find those technicians other than obviously
there's 2 parts to that question. The first part is you should endeavor, if you're a fixed ops manager, if you're a service manager, if you're a GM, if you're an owner, to put me out of business. Because what you want to do is retain the people you have. Because when I got into the business, it seemed like there were as many techs as there were salespeople. I mean, there was a plethora. Can I use a word like plethora on the show? I guess I can.
Of course you can, yeah.
There was a ton of techs. There's much fewer now. Well, what I think that means is let's make sure we understand the value of them and what it costs to replace them. And let's try not to lose them. Again, not a complicated proposition. Reward people when they do a great job, keep them trained, keep them motivated, make them feel like they're part of the process. Second part, of course, is to call me. I've had really, really great success, thank goodness, with getting techs all over the United States, a little bit in Canada. Why? Because I try to make all this stuff simple. I try to make it easier for me to be reached, my people to be reached. I try to make the ads crystal clear. Again, it's just like everything else. Ian, there's no dealership on earth you can't go into, none, where one guy's not making 170,000 and the guy next to him can't make 40. And the guy that's not making 40 is telling everybody how bad the place is and it's terrible and you can never make a living here. The other guy's too busy to engage in that kind of self-defeating discussion because he's busy making the money. We all have the same opportunity. The things that are in our control are our time and our attitude.
Right.
Ian, I'm relying on Ian here because we've become friends and it's been a pleasure being a guest and a sponsor on the show. Ian, you've been around. Ian knows billionaires. I'm sure no billionaire. But have you ever seen anybody whose phone rings as much as mine?
No. By the way, Larry, what's the best phone number for them to reach out to you?
Yeah, it's 215-407-5174. 215-407-5174. Now, follow my point. We were just at a SodaCon, which was set up by Paul Daly and Kyle Monsier, and these guys have promoted me. They're really good guys, and they often said what you say. You got to call this guy. He actually answers his phone. Now, my point is, I'm in over 200 dealers. I'm a full-time musician. I'm married. I got the same things going on that everybody else does, but you've never heard me say to anybody, I'm too busy. Whatever it is, I handle it, and I take care of it. So the message is, when people say, I know you're really busy, I say, wait a minute, I'm not too busy for you. It's a clear message. I'm glad you called. I'm glad I can help you, and thank you. What the heck is complicated about that? And yet I hear all day long, yeah, I'm too busy now. Too busy doing what? Now, once in a while, I'm not going to lie, you do get slammed. Once in a while, I got 3 calls coming in and I'm on a podcast. But that's more of an aberration because I really want to maximize every minute of the day. get as much done as I can, and let people know that I value them and I appreciate them and their time. I don't think that's complicated. Once you get it into your mind that you're a little too important and that you're a little, to talk to people, or I don't get it. Again, I know I keep going back to how simple it is, but if you're in business, let's do business. And let's do everything we can to expedite business and make it really easy for people to have fun and to want to do business with you. And you've never been with me where I don't start telling jokes. I do it on the show. I do it when we meet people. So the net result is when people see me on caller ID, they go, "Oh, Feldman, he'll have a joke. Let's pick it up." Rather than, "Oh, this guy's going to nag me and torture me." So, we basically a product of our environment, but we can shape our environment.
So do you think the reason that people can't attract employees is partially how, maybe upgrading their compensation and how people are compensated, or maybe communicating that better? I know there's a perception, at least in the sales side of the house, that commission jobs are bad, or car sales are bad, or
Well, wait a minute. It's perspective. Okay.
Yeah.
First of all, and again, Ian and I are showing our age. When Ian got into the business, it was real simple. How much money can I make? You didn't want to hug your boss. How much money can I make? That's changed drastically. You've got people that are more interested in their time off, the time they can spend with their family, the quality of their life than we did. And I'm not saying they're right or we were right. I'm just saying that it's changed. So it's not just about the compensation. It's about quality of life and explaining exactly what perks the job can bring, as well as what responsibilities. Now, as far as the compensation, I have a really simple way of handling it. And I bet you most recruiters do, and most smart managers do. I say, "Listen, let me tell you how great this job is. Is it just commission?" Well, for the most part, but isn't that exciting? What do you mean, isn't it exciting? Well, there's no cap on what you can make, because I'm betting you have worked at a job where you made 41,000 and the guy or lady next to you made 41,000, and you were killing yourself and they were goofing off every chance they got, but you both got the same amount of money. Isn't it great that in the car business, it's still a meritocracy? The smarter and the harder you work, with the emphasis being on smarter, the more money you make. So listen, I think it's kind of defeating to say no matter what I do, this is what I'm getting paid. I mean, unless you're an athlete, you're getting paid $20 million a year, then it's okay.
So
I think the fact that there's no limit or cap on what we can make is exciting. I love the fact that you go into a car dealership as a salesperson, as an owner, whatever you're doing, you don't know what's going to happen. Now, some people are intimidated by that, but I love it. I love the fact of seeing what's going to happen.
So what you're saying is, if I happen to be someone from a different background or a different gender or whatever, that doesn't impact what I make. Like, I can make what I'm entitled to based on what I do. Is that correct in the car business?
It's correct in life. It's the limitations we have, or the limitations we place on ourselves. If you want to find a reason not to succeed, there's a million of them. But how about if you find a reason to succeed? Okay, I spent my career in Trenton, New Jersey. Okay, and if you went up to Lawrenceville, there was a woman named Mrs. G's. If there's anybody from Jersey, you know what I'm talking about. This woman was smart, tough as nails, that her customers loved her. Her furniture store is still thriving. She passed on many years ago. There's 42 million success stories about women, African Americans, Jews like me. This is America. The reason people risk their lives to come here is nothing's impossible here. The thing that stops us is that person we see in the mirror. Once we start putting limitations on what we're doing and how we're doing it, we're trapped. Listen, can I digress for a minute, since it's just you?
Absolutely. Yeah, go ahead.
You know my goal. I recruiting. I'm in 200 dealers. I train all over the country, but I'd like to be better known as a motivational speaker. So I'm doing some videos now, similar to what TED Talks are. I'm going to call them Larry Talks, and you'll get a kick out of this, Ian. The first one I did, no script. They turned the camera on. I said, "Let's roll." Was, what do Charlie Brown, Spider-Man, Mother Teresa, and Elvis Presley all have in common? Well, obviously, two are comic book cartoon figures, and and two are world famous, incredible icons. But whether it was imaginary in comics or in magazines or in a cartoon or in the real life of a saint and arguably the most charismatic entertainer that ever lived, they were all buried by insecurities and doubts. We all have them. We all wonder, why is this guy or this lady doing better than me? Why does this stuff always happen to me? Once we embrace the fact that, hey, you're alive, one day you're going to be dead, and in between you should have as much fun and fill up as much of the day as possible. Simple. You've heard my classes. I love to say to people, listen, if you're going to be somewhere for 8 hours, doesn't it make sense to be busy for those 8 hours? Everybody I've ever met, everybody, and by the way, we're way more alike than we are dissimilar. That's why prejudice and anti-Semitism are ridiculous. We're very much alike as a species of human beings. Okay. Everybody I've ever met has had this happen to them. They look at their watch or their iPhone and go, wow, it's time to go home. The day flew by. But what most people do is adhere to Thoreau's theorem, which is most men lead lives of quiet desperation. They moan and groan the whole way to work. They spend the whole day complaining or being miserable. And then they just set the clock to do the same thing tomorrow. But I think if we understand that this is all in our hands, there's a reason, as I said, every dealership has somebody super successful and somebody scraping by. They don't say to the person that's super successful, you can sell all the cars and the other guy can't. The choices we make, the decisions we make, our attitude, how we use our time form how successful we are. And as far as I know, there's no limits on that depending on your religion, your skin color, your height. I'm a short, crazy Jewish guy. I'm doing good. I always did good. Because when I get up in the morning, I'm excited, man. Let's see what's going to happen. And I can guarantee if you're negative, you're going to bring that negativity with you wherever you go.
So maybe you could talk a little bit about some success stories. Obviously, you've recruited people for dealers. You've worked with people over a period of time from all different backgrounds. Maybe you could talk a little bit about some success stories from people you've trained or brought into the business, or maybe people that you've moved from one side of the business to another.
Sure.
If you have examples for us.
Oh, my God, do I have examples for you. It's so funny because two guys reached out to me this week. One guy's in Pennsylvania, and he came in as a recruit in one of my classes. I interviewed him, I trained him, and they said, I don't know about this guy. I said, shut up, you're hiring him. Again, if you're cocky enough and you believe in things and you're not afraid to, I never care if somebody doesn't want to use me anymore. Okay, I'm going to give you the truth. I'm going to give you my best. Well, they hired him, and now he's one of the managers. Another story was a guy in Florida. It's funny you asked me that. I'll give you this guy's first name. He won't be offended. His name is Adam. And I was doing some work because I did work in West Palm Beach for the Bremen organization. They heard about me and a lot of dealers used me. And this guy came in through my class and now he's the GSM. I mean, I could bore everybody on the show by going over and over and over. This is the car business. The great thing about this business is the cream rises to the top. Because if you're doing terrific, the owner, the GM goes, wait a minute, this guy's moving himself. How about if we get him to move everybody else in the place up a little bit? Just like I've had, just the fact that it's America, that you can come from nowhere and be everywhere. But your head has to be in the game. You have to be excited about what you do. The attitude of gratitude has to be there. Man, if you're not excited every day that you're breathing, that you're above ground, it's not complicated. Here, everybody knows you can get rich buying stock in Dunkin' Donuts if I'm around. I was happy I grabbed an iced tea at time before I got on the show. None of this is complicated.
Understood. Yeah, I mean, when you look at the personalities in the car business, and we saw this at a SodaCon, just a whole range of characters, a cast of characters, and when we go to events and we get to interview people from all walks of life, be it the Papa has dealership people or the gentleman, I think it was from Casa Ford, I think, gentleman. I'm not sure, remember his name, but he's got a distinctive look. He's from Texas somewhere. I'm trying to remember the name off the top of my head. And then every other part of the business, from people that are in the technology side, the people that are in the OEM side, the people that are just excited to be in the car business at any level, people out there learning, people out there supporting each other. I mean, what amazes me every day in the car business, I've been at it, I don't know, 25 years-ish, is the variety of personalities. But more importantly, to your point, people that are having fun with what they do. I mean, one of the greatest things about editing some of these videos, and probably most of them, if not all, is that there's definitely going to be moments in these videos that you wouldn't see in any other business. I mean, why I got into the car business 25 years ago was I had a passion for cars, which isn't a necessity, but it does help. And I wanted to do a job that was fun and interesting where I got to interact with people. And I think there's very few jobs out there outside of the car business where you get to interact with people from all walks of life and help them buy a car, service a car, fix a car, trade a car, whatever it might be. But more importantly, as a manager in the business, working in retail or even at the OEM level, you get to help other people blaze their own trail by sharing what you know. And I think there's a great video where I think they play on this, slice of pizza and all this stuff. But the hours might be long, but they're interesting. And I think that's the biggest challenge as we roll into the future is we have a difference in demographics today in terms of generations. And those generations are very different. So what's your advice to a manager who maybe is a Gen Xer or a baby boomer or maybe an elder millennial who has to deal with people from 4 different generations, not only on their staff, but also, from a customer point of view? How do you recommend they deal with that change?
I recommend they do 2 things. Whether you bring me in or not, whether you're doing it yourself, training that's fun, that's short and punchy. You don't want to bore people. You don't want people, short, punchy training, but consistent training. But also, besides group training, one-on-one training. Because if you don't treat people differently, considering how different, Gen X's might be and a guy that's 60 might be, I think we have to take people for what they are. The same way we have to take customers for what they are. This discussion goes around a lot about one of the mistakes vendors make, and we make with customers as salespeople, is we don't communicate with people the way they instruct us to communicate with them. And I cannot tell you, I pride myself in answering my phone. I hired a young lady I sold a car to 1 million years ago. She answers when I can't answer, or if I'm on a plane or training, like on our podcast today. But I can't tell you how many times somebody will send us a resume, and I'll say, "This looks great. Please call me." They text me. Well, I didn't ask you to text me. I asked you to call me. But again, it's so incongruous how we don't listen, and then we don't understand why we don't get results. Let me give you 2 really, really, really simple examples, if I may. You mentioned Billy Reynolds. How do I know Billy Reynolds? We were at NADA, right? And you pulled me over and said to Billy, "This is Larry Feldman. He's a sponsor of our show, and the guy's a riot." At which point I think I told 97 straight jokes. I think he broke a rib, falling down. He was laughing so hard. Well, we've become friends. Well, the next thing I know, he's reading my book, Inner Moron Demons. He shot me a picture of it. I put it on. The other gentleman you brought in, Claudio, we're engaged in conversation about coming up and doing some motivational training. What was complicated about that? I didn't come in and try to sell them anything. I had fun with them. They then approached me and said, "Man, you got plenty of energy. Let's see what we can do." When I went to work at the dealership that I worked at, we had an unusual financial situation with the banks, which meant very lucrative deals, very lucrative. So a lot of guys quit as managers to work there as salespeople because, again, back then the consideration was how much money I could make. First full month I was there, I was top salesperson. How? I walked up and down the street and approached everybody. The Old Avenue Deli, the 7-Eleven. Is that complicated? Again, if you have a dog and you point, your dog never looks where you're pointing. He looks at your finger. If we start looking ahead to what we're trying to accomplish, I was there to sell cars, make money, and make my name. Well, you're not going to do that by staring out the window and complaining. And again, we didn't have the internet. We didn't have iPhones where you could text people. That's what's so scary is the people younger than us and even our age that are currently working have way more tools than we do, and they use them less. That just really, this is like saying, "Yep, he's got an infection. This isn't 1920. We have penicillin. We can save him. Let's not give it to him. Let's give him an aspirin. Maybe that'll work." Is there anything worse than people that do know what to do and still don't do it?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, and it's a great point there, Larry. When you look at the I guess the people I talked to at the event, the people I got to meet up with in person I haven't seen in a while, all the talk about AI and other things, and texting is another area, whether it be Podium or other companies. I mean, there's a lot of ways to communicate on your tool belt. You got a lot of tools, much like Batman. But the question is, what's the right tool for the job? And the thing that's interesting, as I think it was Brett Sutherland was posting, looking for another employee today, but I think he posted a poll a couple weeks ago, and he was talking about how should I pay people? And I said, well, why don't you start by asking? He says, well, that creates too much variation. I said, well, part of the reason you're having trouble attracting and retaining staff from different generations is that millennial or Gen Z might say, hey, boss, like if I had a large base salary and a small commission structure, that might work for me. Or that person who's, maybe it's not about how much money they make, it's about the hours they have to work to make that money. So to me, the way I look at it is this: we're going to have to adapt to the new reality, whether it be training or compensation or attracting talent. But we also got to train the basics. We got to say, hey, if that customer who's a greatest generation, or they're a baby boomer or Gen X, and they actually request a phone call, that means you actually have to know how to use the telephone, whether it's these fancy phones that are expensive, or whether it's a traditional old school telephone that I have over here, one of these things with a cable. I mean, those phones, at the end of the day, it's about adapting to that person, that customer. And I think, it really at the end of the day is about customers. But also it's about asking questions and listening to that employee or potential employee and training them on the basics. They might not have learned how to use the telephone when they're growing up. That's why they like to text on these devices today, right? That may be part of the problem. But also, as we talk about AI, and we had a show a couple weeks ago called the AIO show, really it's about working with new technology when it makes sense and not assuming it's going to do our job for us, because I think that's a mistake. So when we look at technology, we had talks about Techion and other companies. When we look about automation, and it was funny, I was at the airport and they have those shops that sell stuff, so magazines, chocolate bars, and whatever. So they had automated checkout in these stores in the airport to sell you stuff, and they had a guy full time that all he was doing was trying to train people how to use these automated checkouts, whereas years ago he was just taking money. So now it's become sort of like, okay, I want you to use this automated machine because I don't want to talk to you, but then you don't know how to use it, so I got to pay someone to show you how to use it. So it seemed to me it would be a little crazy. Like all you're doing is creating a bigger problem. Whereas, and this is a testament to the airport in Atlanta, I flew through on the way back, they had a gentleman, much like they do an In-N-Out burger, with a tablet who was taking breakfast orders through the line of people waiting to get breakfast. So it was like one using technology with a person versus using a person to try and teach you technology. So I thought it was really interesting to see that dichotomy of solutions. One obviously worked way better than the others. If someone had been out in front and said, listen, what do you need? Instead of having this huge store, what do you need? They had a kiosk and they said, yeah, well, let me get that for you. That's a lot better experience than trying to figure it out. Right?
I was at I'm in the airport a lot these days. And I was Don Shula's in Florida, a little steakhouse. Yeah. And they've gone to where, you have the QR code on the table. Yeah. And I maneuvered through it, even though I'm not Mr. Technical, but there was an elderly couple next to me that were stymied. And the server came over and she was terrific. She said, folks, are you having a problem with this? Let me help you. Without the human touch, all technology can go south. Listen, let's go back old school. Do you remember when they started using computers and they would print out the inventory list? How many, you saw the same dopes I saw. Right. Instead of walking people out, making them fall in love with a color or car, it was like, yep, I got the list right here. Are you crazy? Well, now it's even worse. Okay. I don't know what you folks are going through out there, but I'm getting a call 5 times a day. If I ever run into the people, I'll be in jail for homicide. Okay. Because it's this girl and she says, it's Erica. Are you there? Well, it's a computer robot that's trying to hook me into something. I don't know what it is because they keep hanging up, but there's nobody to holler at. There's nobody to say, don't call me.
Yeah.
if technology can help us, if it can make it easier to transmit information, if it can make it easier for a hospital to access your anything that makes life easy, I'm in. I'm in. Okay. Again, at our age, we've seen stuff that we don't even think about anymore. Okay. You got garage door openers. You have a remote for your television. There's things that are out there that just make our lives easy. But when you start pulling the humanity out, and God forbid, when you run into situations wherever you're trying to work through doesn't work, how frustrating is that? You've told me many times the problem with a lot of technology, it just doesn't damn work.
Yeah, I mean, I was on the plane and we're trying to get some food, so they said, "Oh, check out the menu in your seat." Well, there ain't no menu because they didn't put it in. So,
Small problem.
So they walk up and they said, "Well, what did you want to order?" I said, "Well, there ain't no menu." And they said, "Oh, I thought there was." "Well, maybe you should look on this tablet." I'm like, "Well, why didn't you start with that?" Like, it was funny. But the funnier thing to me, being in an airport, not as much as you, but having been in an airport lots, is the fact that you have all these pieces moving, and most of the time they work perfectly, but sometimes they don't. But more importantly, people get panicked because they get to airports. There's a woman in front of me as I was checking in, flying back, and she hadn't been on a plane in 3-4 years. So she was panicked about the time, even though she was there 2 hours early. So it was kind of interesting just sort of seeing people's perception. But more importantly, if someone from the airline had just said, "Listen, don't panic. You got 2 hours. Probably only going to take an hour for us to do all this."
Wait. If she hasn't been on a plane in 3 or 4 years, hopefully you told her if it's a Boeing plane not to sit by the door. I just mentioned.
Well, that was also funny. So I was flying on Delta for part of the trip, and in Delta they have free Wi-Fi. But the first thing it says, "Oh, don't use it for video calls. Don't use it for video. You can't use it for video calls. You can't use it for anything but the internet." So I thought that was hilarious that they're having to say this like 5-6 times. But it was interesting because every time I fly, it's kind of a different experience. But I wouldn't say over the last 20 years it's necessarily a better experience. It's just different. And I think that's true with hiring. When you look at hiring today, and there was an article I read a couple weeks ago, this gentleman where I used to live in Vancouver, he applied for 1,000 jobs and he didn't get one offer from 1,000 jobs. So I sat there and I said, part of the challenge is just the volume of employees that aren't qualified, but more importantly, the lack of people, trying to find people who are reaching out to those people saying, "Listen, this is not the job for you, but here's where you may want to go look for a job," because clearly it's not the right job. And I think a lot of it's overwhelming because we see posts on LinkedIn all the time about someone looking for a job, figuring I throw it out in the ether and I'm going to get great candidates. I mean, what's your advice to that person who really doesn't know how to find that staff, but more importantly is doing a lot of the wrong things, and that's why they're not getting it?
Well, if you're not going to call me or a similar recruiter, what do? You look internally. One of the sad things, again, is how many tools we have that we don't use. How can you still go into dealerships and you ask some of the sales staff, "How often do you go into service?" "I don't go back there." Why? Because you don't want more business and more money and more deals. If you think about it, if your employees are happy, they know people. They're not living in a cave. Nothing is stronger than word of mouth. Nothing is stronger than when somebody says, "Hey, man, they're not taking care of you there? You should come work with me, man. They're great here." I mean, isn't that how we sell cars? We sell cars off. "Oh, you go see Larry, go see, and they took great care of me." So if we look internally and make the people that we have feel great about themselves, maybe they'll go out in the community and make those people feel great about themselves. You always want to be actively seeking out people because unfortunately turnover is now part of our life in every industry. When we were kids, you were where you were, who you were, what you were. That's all different, man. I mean, listen, when I grew up, you knew who. If you mentioned a ball player, you knew which team he was on because he stayed on that team. I mean, at the very end of his career, Willie Mays, because the Giants started in New York, wound back up with the Mets, but he was still in New York. But can you explain if hockey is your sport and you had the greatest player that ever lived in Wayne Gretzky, and all of a sudden he's a Los Angeles King? Half the marriages end in divorce. We're a society built on impermanence. So if you understand the concept that people are going to leave and they are going to change, isn't it just important to make the people that you have feel great? Okay. I'm afraid to tell you how long my drummer and me have been together in my band, like forever. All right. I'll date myself. It's been 40 years. I see bands that make $52 billion and they split up in 3 weeks because they don't like each other. I'm respectful of him. He's respectful of me. And we make it clear how much we like playing together. Okay. It's a matter of relating. I had the pleasure of meeting a bunch of new folks. I've talked to him over the internet, but the first chance I had to meet Styx Brown. Man, you would think we've been friends now for 50 years. He's obviously a musician, drummer. We started talking music. We were in a whole different galaxy. We were able to relate to each other. But you have to want to relate to people. If your attitude is, I don't like people and I don't like to be bothered, then you're going to, again, you're going to reap what you sow. But if your concept is, I like people and I like having fun and I like pulling people in, it's not just the car business. You're going to be successful in every business. What is the difference between a successful server and a non-successful server? A non-successful server, first of all, you can't get their attention. Then you order something spicy. You need another drink. You're dying. You're ready to set the table on fire to get their attention. A good server comes over and says, by the way, sir, you ordered this. I know it's really spicy. Here's an extra drink. Is any of this complicated? Making it clear to people that I'm glad you're here. I appreciate you. I want to make you happy. And gosh, I'd really like to treat you so well that I earn more of your business.
Yeah, I mean, it was funny. I ran into Brian Benstock at the show. I didn't have a lot of chance to talk to him because he was busy doing a big presentation. But it was funny because Honda in the USA and Canada changed the way dealers are compensated based on the margin on new vehicles recently. And it was a little bit different in the Canadian and US market, but in both cases, they basically schwacked off a bunch of the profit margin. And I've talked to some dealers across Canada recently, and I've started talking to dealers in the US about this as well. It's really about how you look at it, how you look at that challenge. Brian didn't seem to think at all that it was even an issue because his view was you got to embrace the change that's around. I mean, he was busy last week promoting their new electric car. So
have you ever seen Brian's place of business? It's about this big. And yet somehow he's the #1 Honda and Acura dealer. So he has the classic excuse. I don't have enough room. I'm Nope.
Yeah.
Once again, when you look at things as challenges rather than obstacles, everything gets easy.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't had the pleasure. I mean, I have been to Brooklyn Mitsubishi and some other places, and next time in Manhattan, definitely have to check it out because I know he's in Greater Manhattan. But to your point, I think we were talking about some of the most successful car salesmen in history, including some recently. I mean, I had the chance to interview a gentleman in Winnipeg who's the top Honda salesman in Canada. He sells about 100 cars a month-ish. And the thing that was interesting about it was the story wasn't that complicated. It was just, how do I understand how that person's successful? And to Brian's point, I mean, Brian's been at it 40 years in the same location. His secret to success is pretty simple. Make it frictionless for the customer, be ahead of the curve, treat people well, and more importantly, make it easier for them to buy or not buy. It's not about the tiles in your location or the image program. It's about, how do you take care of customers and grow your business? So I think from a point of view of servers, it's interesting you brought that up because I was at a restaurant in the hotel we were staying at, and I was talking to the lady who was serving us, and she's like, yeah, I really don't like my job. My feet hurt, this and that. I said, well, you may want to get in the car business. And she's like, the car business? I'm like, yeah, like you can work on your schedule. You can sell cars. It's a shift job. But more importantly, you're going to make a lot more money and you're already good at what you do, which is helping people. You just don't like helping people in this location. So I think another tip for people that are looking for staff in their community, whether they be a GM, an owner, a sales manager, service director, is find people that are already good with people because at least they have the basic skills, and then convince them to at least give you a shot. I mean, have you had good success with that?
Tremendous. And let me throw one other example into this. A lot of this has to flow from the top down, make it clear that this is the way we do business. And I think one of the clearest examples of this is Sam Walton of Walmart. Sam Walton opined that the most important person, the boss in any business, is the customer. It's not me. It's not all my managers under me, because if the customer stops buying your product, what are you the boss of, right? If your cousin ran a Pontiac dealership, okay, or an Oldsmobile dealership, tell me what he's running now. They don't exist anymore. And when he was alive, you could go into any Walmart and be amazed that even though it's an inexpensive store, how clean and perfect everything was, because he would do spot checks all over the country. Well, he passed on, sadly, and his kids are splitting up billions of dollars. And I don't think I'm being disrespectful. I'm just stating the truth. If you go into most Walmarts, they don't look organized and clean and precise the way they did when Sam Walton was alive. And it's my opinion that his kids could have never built the company the way he did, because his policy was simple. You see that customer? That's the boss. Let's make them happy. Let's roll through. So if it doesn't roll from the top down, it gets ugly. Another skewed example that you'll agree with. How many times did they send us out? And when I say us, I'm talking about all car salespeople everywhere to get trained. And they'd send us to whatever trainer it was, and we'd come back and we'd mention it to the desk manager, and the desk manager go, we're not doing that BS. Oh, okay. No problem. Did you tell the owner that? Because he stroked a check to the guy. But again, it's the way life works. What we think we're doing, the way we think we're connecting, if it's not honest, if we don't look in the mirror, and if we don't measure what kind of net effect we're having, because if what you're doing works, continue to work on it and continue to improve it and change and mold and adapt. But if it's not working, wouldn't that be a good time to look at a change of course and change of direction?
Oh, 100%. I mean, it's funny that you mentioned Walmart. I bought it when I first moved to Alberta here from BC. I bought what I thought was going to be a garbage pail for my apartment or my condo. And, I didn't end up using it. I was taking it back. Oh, no, you've had it for more than 30 days. We're not going to take that back. So I thought it was kind of funny because you look at companies like IKEA, for example, they have a 365-day exchange policy. We don't care why you didn't need it. We'll just take it back. What else did you want while you're here? It's a difference in philosophy, but more importantly, it's about the customer. I mean, one of the sayings for SodaCon is, care more about people than you do about cars. I think care more about customers, because without the customer, there is no business. Doesn't matter if it's cars or motorcycles or boats or houses. Really, it's about the customer. At the end of the day, what you're looking for is people who can handle customers and love doing it.
No, not who can, who want to.
Yeah.
Who enjoy the idea of being social.
And those people are not unique to the car business. So what's been your success now that we're down to the last couple minutes in getting someone who maybe isn't in the car business and train them how to do that? I mean, I'd
rather once in a while a manager will say to me, find me some experienced guys, and I'll say, why? If the guy's good, if the lady's good, why would they want to leave? I'd rather find somebody that has passion, that has energy, that has ambition, and train them from the ground up. I think most people that are forward thinking would agree that makes more sense than getting somebody that's already ingrained a million bad habits.
Right. And what's your final thought of the one thing a dealer can do better, or manufacturer or service director can do better to find staff and retain staff in 2024?
Look in the mirror, take a really hard look at the day-to-day operations of your business, how you treat your employees, how then your employees treat your customers. And again, let's go back to the example of my GM leaving and saying, tell them I left already. If that's the attitude you're putting out, that these people are not that important, heck, you're not that important. You're going to get, these people don't care about me, so I don't care about them. Let's end it with Dale Carnegie 101. Okay. If you show people you care about them, they'll care about you.
Absolutely. Well, thanks again, Larry. And as always, it was a pleasure. If you're looking for staff, you can call Larry. Yeah, that's right. Or text him, but call is preferred. But you can check it out at careerchangersusa.com. His cell phone number is 215-407-5174. That's 215-407-5174. And if you're looking for staff, or you're looking for training and staff, or a mixed bag, he can help. That includes technicians, managers, salespeople, anyone at a car dealership. And of course, he works with dealers all across Canada and the U.S.
Hey, just call me if you need a joke or something. I'm easy.
Yeah, absolutely. Have a great day. Have a great week. A pleasure as always. Great to see you in Baltimore, Maryland. Bye for now.